We're here today. I stand on very tall shoulders, that of Diageo, the company that I work with. We passionately believe in one of the founding tenets of diversity inclusion, which is progressive portrayal. I'm going to quickly go into what there is because I believe I stand between all of us and lunch. That's not a great place to be. So let's get going. What's the case for unstereotyping? I don't believe there's a case that needs to be made. If you ask me, unstereotyping is pretty much what all of us are doing sitting in this room here today. I know that I've been one of those people who've been called as a person who unstereotypes, as a woman in the alcoholic beverage sector. And more often than not, I'm asked about what does it feel like? And that tells me there's a journey ahead. We do have pop culture. We're sitting in the city that pretty much invents pop culture by the minute, by the day, right? And in this microcosm, which is changing really, really fast, we've still got a long way to go. 1 in 20 is the proportion of women directors today in Bollywood. We're not even talking about different ethnic minorities, alternate or LGBTQI+. We're not even talking about people with disabilities, about age, and what we see as a consequence. So we've got a long way to go. And typically we use pop culture as a surrogate for the world that's going to be around us, right? But the fact remains that our brands and our advertising, and that's a case that's been made really well today by so many of us. Our brands and our advertising are an even more important lens on what we want to see. We want to see vibrant, inclusive societies. And as brands, that's our job and our duty to tell stories about the way that society wants to see the world, what's acceptable, what's aspirational, to shape really what's going around. Brilliant work for us at Diageo, and I'm sure for a lot of people here, is not just about representation. And I'm going to make today a case to you for progressive portrayal that goes beyond representation. Yeah? And I think you've seen some stellar examples of that. I am going a little fast, so apologies for that. But like I said, there is lunch waiting. We spoke about this earlier, right? A 69% increase in stock price is the outcome that you see when you actually go beyond representation into progressive portrayal. There's an increased purchase intent, and engagement and distinctivity of your brands, your storytelling goes up many-fold, way beyond brands that don't do it. This is a little dated relative to the Kantar research, but it only reaffirms what you saw earlier today, which is that people, consumers, agree that brands are not doing a good enough job. So that's where it is, right? If you heard it first from consumers. Our mandate, and this is where I kind of pivot a little bit to say and tell you a little bit about what our journey's been like on progressive portrayal. First of all, it's a journey. We've made progress. Every day I look at the work we do and I think, my gosh, could we do more? Could we do better? We started about 7 years ago with the framework. 2018, I know that we put out, and by the way, McDowell's put out what was some of its most goosebumpy, engaging advertising with portrayal of a person with disability 5 years ago, right? So that's a journey we've been on. We started, by the way, with gender, which was everyone's favorite. We then moved on to ethnic minorities. And here I'm talking about globally and not just in India. And ever since we've seen that this idea of representation and progressive portrayal has actually evolved, and the dialogues, the conversation, the lenses have all become much, much, much wider. How do we see our achievements? Well, of course, we're proud of what we've done. We're seeing a lot of our campaigns being picked up from countries like Cameroon, from, of course, the US, Australia recently. Someone spoke about J&B. It's a brand that we're really, really proud of, and that work came from Southern Europe, right? Global stages and media are talking and picking up stories not just about progressive portrayal, but also about how advertising that we're putting out is breaking biases. And that's really this moment, that glory slide where we look at it and say, wow, we're doing well. I think some of this data was shown, so I will skip this slide, but this is global data. This is not just India. So the thought I want to leave with you is that it's not like global's much better. India, of course, is worse. At less than 1%, I mean, what are we talking about? We can definitely do a better job. Um, and I'm trying to move forward really fast, so bear with me. The fact is that questions like age, questions like not just alternative or fluid genders, but people with disabilities, ethnicity, skin color, hair. Egypt went through a revolution when women refused to straighten their hair and conform to beauty, what was a beauty paradigm. And by the way, I wear my curls now quite proudly, but that was the truth, that rebelling against straightening your hair was seen as questioning authority. Can you believe that? Yeah? So the conversation has broadened, and it's tricky. It is tricky to say which side of that conversation do you want to be a part of. Again, for us, we've stated these goals on our annual report. Feel free to go up and check out the Diageo annual report. We'll actually tell you about what we're doing on inclusion and diversity, our goals. In fact, we set out goals even on media and media spends on progressive. And I'm going to come back and talk about that because I don't think that's been covered yet today. Yeah? So we wanted to approach this in a way that quantified and qualified our approach. And therefore, we pulled together a framework. And I'm really proud to share, like I said, the work that's been done over many years on behalf of Diageo with you today. We hope, as Diageo, that also this inspires and sparks some conversations for all of us here. So the 4 big themes that we approach for unstereotyping, and I really love these themes. The first is representation. We've spoken about it, right? People in roles, or actually just seeing people who exist and giving them a place in your narrative, in your creative. But equally, there's perspective. Perspective is the unique lens that a person brings to that storytelling. I think you saw that on the VIX story that came in. Now, perspective is not just what you see in front of the camera. Representation isn't just what you see in front of the camera. It's from behind the camera. It's the directors. It's the art directors. It's the script writers. It's everyone. Last year, correct me if I'm wrong, Oni, and he's disappeared on cue, but 45% of all creative made by us in India was made with a diverse perspective, which meant we had either people of different genders behind the camera, writing stories, producing for us, talent, influencers, you name it, 45%. It's a metric we track. And for us, 45% means that we're getting there, we can get even better. Then there's agency. It's not just about representation or about perspective, but giving these people, these characters, the ability to perform in those stories and shape those stories and narratives, right? It's not just about putting a face up, it's about being able to actually enable or make things happen. And finally, characterization. Everyone loves Bridgerton and loves how well developed those roles and those characters were, right? Imagine a world where this didn't exist at all. In fact, that world probably does exist in some parts of the world. So that's the framework that we use. And we evaluate our creative on all of these 4. And to be fair, not all creatives make it, right? So it is an endeavor to get there. And that's the journey that I would encourage all of us to make. So, like I said, representation, who gets to speak, who's there in the frame. Perspective, whose gaze directs the conversation. Agency, how they act and behave and what they can shape and tell us. And finally, characterization. How much of time do we spend and how much consideration do we give these characters? And I spoke earlier and I alluded to media earlier. we actually committed in 2020, so we have a different financial year, but let's say in our last financial year, we committed to spend 80 million globally pounds on media that supported people with alternative voices. So this is not just about portraying them, but also giving them the financial heft to be able to carry their storytelling, not just ours, into the larger world. Against that, year one, 38 million. Year two, we're going to smash that number, I'm sure, right? So it's not just about telling the right stories, it's also about using the right media, let's say the podcasts, or people who are telling the stories, influencers, etc., supporting them as they build out their ecosystem and enabling and empowering them to tell the right kind of stories that support progressive portrayal. For us, it doesn't stop at media. So we talked about progressive portrayal in creative and progressive media spends. The third lever is design. How do you make brands and products progressive or inclusive, is the better way to put it, by design? Whether it is design inspired by ethnic minorities who are underrepresented and who can tell the true story. Smirnoff Tamarindo is our best performing Smirnoff variant globally. And all of it is driven by the kind of packaging that you see there, designed by an ethnic Mexican artist. The second is accessible design at the Johnny Walker Experience Centers, for example. Yeah, we redesigned them to think of people who were being left out. And finally, really apprenticeship and mentoring to be able to get these voices in. What I'm going to share with you is something that some people in this room, I can't see them right now, have been a part of. Just an example of something that we just launched in market. So here you go.
ज़्यादा busy हूँ. One sec. Let me call you back.
बिन कुछ कहे सुने सब कुछ तो कह दिया दिल ने चाहा आज सीख ले कुछ नया
अगले रोल के लिए
हाय मेरे मैसेज का रिप्लाई तो कर देता।
ओए कुक्की, तेरा ब्रेकअप वाला डायलॉग है यार. पता था हर साल यही करवाते हो मगर हमेशा एक यार छूट जाता है. ऋषभ, ये तेरे लिए. संजना, प्रॉब्लम ये नहीं है कि ब्रेकअप हुआ है. मेरा फेवरेट कलर ब्लैक है. कैसा लगा? 6 महीने से घिस रहा था, प्रैक्टिस कर रहा था. तू बोल रहा है ठीक. जो हमेशा कुछ नया सिखाती है. यारों वाली बात तो वही होती है. हाउस ऑफ मैकडॉउल्स, यारों वाली बात.
This got released like 3 days ago. And like I said, we started this journey in McDowell's with our partners DDB Mudra along 5, 6 years ago. And we continue that journey with them. So thank you, DDB. Okay, sorry, let's go forward. This, by the way, is also the other creative we launched last week. Very proud to present Walkers & Co.
Blue, green, yellow, orange, and every brilliant shade of red. Every color has its own space on a canvas, its own story, much like us. And when our voices come together in a riot of color and art, we reclaim the spaces that were always ours.
We are the Arvani Art Project.
We make way for others to keep walking.
कर्णिका, आप हमारे साथ दैट एंटायर क्रिएटिव जो हमने देखा अभी, दैट एंटायर जर्नी जो हुई है, राइट? आपकी जो कम्युनिटी है, जब आप स्क्रीन पे कुछ देखते हो जहाँ पे रिप्रेजेंटेशन और कहानियाँ जो बोली जा रही है आप लोग को दिखाता भी नहीं है, व्हाट डज दैट डू? वो आपके लिए क्या करता है एंड व्हाट डज इट साइकोलॉजिकली टेल यू? मतलब आपके दिमाग में वो क्या चलता है एंड व्हेन यू सी दैट आपको कैसा लगता है कि हमें तो भूल ही गए एंड हेंस उसके बाद what should be actually happening?
नमस्कार, मैं कर्णिका। जो आपने पूछा है ना, आज तक जो मैं सिनेमा में देखी हूँ, जहाँ मेरे मेरे जेंडर को, मेरी समाज है उसको जो दिखाया गया है, वहाँ से या तो हम हास्य पद में थे या फिर हमें हर इसक में दिखाया गया है कि हम तो कुछ है ही नहीं, हम बस एक मजाक का जो जरिया होता है वो है। लेकिन जब अभी रिसेंटली मैंने एक मॉडलिंग का काम किया आप लोग के साथ, और मुझे पता चला कि अगर मुझे अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगा तो मैं इससे भी ज़्यादा कुछ कर सकती हूँ। एक आर्टिस्ट हूँ मैं। 2016 से मैंने सेल्फ लर्न आर्ट करके मैंने अरवानी के साथ काम करती हूँ, आज लीड आर्टिस्ट हूँ। बड़े बड़े वॉल्स के जो प्रोडक्ट्स जितने भी वॉल हैं मैं खुद करती हूँ, उनके वहाँ जाके क्लाइंट हैंडल मैं खुद करती हूँ। तो वो बदलाव इसीलिए आया क्योंकि मैं आगे आई और मेरे साथ समाज आगे आया। अगर समाज आगे नहीं आएगा और जो मैं आगे नहीं आऊँगी तो बदलाव नहीं आएगा। जी।
Amazing. Saad, uh, Saad, a similar question to you. For someone who is breaking glass ceilings in the acting profession, right, for deaf actors and possibly actors with differently abled artistry, right? When you see a movie or an ad or a piece of content, music video, anything which does not portray you and the community you represent, right? What does it tell you? What is happening to culture and what hence needs to be done? Could someone help with the mic there?
I have a mic here. Thank you. So thank you so much for this question. Yeah, since childhood, I have been I am working as an actor, doing acting, like doing different things, dancing and all in the community itself. And I always felt and it was my goal to become an actor. And when I did the shoot with McDowell's, that gave me a very positive experience and inspiration as well to move forward. And yes.
Thank you. That would really be, and McDowell's team can take as much pride in this fact. I can assure you that. Hayden, coming to something that is quite simply the part of the journey that's possibly the most difficult and misunderstood, right? As part of the creative fraternity, when you have a client that suddenly comes and tells you, hey, I want to represent this spectrum on my film or on my brand, right? How does the process differ for you when you address that brief and start the creative process, right? How is it different, and what needs to be taken away or added to the experience of creating content, communication around that brief?
Okay, so am I audible? Yeah. So I think first of all, it's quite a responsibility. Like I think when you're actually approached by a brand or that, hey, we want to do something which is inclusive, right? That's the first thing. But the second question really is, I always tend to ask why. Like, do you have a genuine reason as to why you're doing it, or are you just doing it because it's performative? It's something that you need to do.
Yeah.
Right. So I think these are the two things that are pretty much the guiding principle before we actually start work on anything. Do we need to do it to begin with? And if we are doing it, how genuinely and authentically can we do it?
Okay, and thereby runs that risk, right? You're in the risk of, and there are terms for that. You're in the risk of pink washing or rainbow washing or virtue signaling of a disability, right? At what point in this journey, though, you would want to end that conversation? Because it's never easy to say no, you shouldn't do it to a client. Because what the world is going to, a lot of this entire initiative of DEI or progressive work tends to be a little bit more award pandering, and oh wow, right? It's not long-term business goals, and we were hearing this the whole day, right? How does that experience then matter to say that, listen, we could run the risk of being of pink washing or rainbow washing? How do you avoid that, and what do you do in that case?
I think you just say no. I think it's probably a little, it is difficult, and I think there are a lot of people from the advertising fraternity right now who are just thinking like, yeah, you obviously can't just say no to a client. But I think you need to, and I think it's about time we stood up to that and we put our foots down and we actually asked the right questions and just said no to these things. You know, so I think I'm going to talk a lot about this thing that I call intention, right? Before we start work on anything at all, we need to have the right intention, right? And I think that goes for most things in life. It's not just advertising. If your intention is more than just, hey, let's do something because it's June, or let's just tag a rainbow flag onto our brand or our product, then I think you're already going to be called out.
Got it. Yeah. And I would then shift to Saad. Saad, um, how does, from a consumer of the same products that everybody is communicating with completely abled actors and not including people in the minority groups that you would represent and champion, how does that consumer experience change? And as a consumer, what do you think? I mean, there's the artist and there is the consumer that is going through the same brands. How does that experience change?
Yes, when I see every time what they portray or like the media or the like ads portray is always a positive way out over there. And like if they are doing something for the community, I believe they must represent and take the representation from the community and shows the authenticity from the community. That is where it is very important, because like if I belongs to a deaf community, so I would want to, like if I am going to any brand as in consumer, I would want that brand to do something for me and something from my community, and they like at least feature someone from my community, so that even like that gives hope to the community as well, and that breaks the community's barrier and they are not sidelined.
Amazing.
And, yeah, and that's how that the ads also can be more beautifully represented.
Amazing. Kanika, यही सवाल आपको भी. आप there is ये जो आर्टिस्ट हैं जो represent कर रही हैं अपनी community को so इतनी powerfully, लेकिन there is also this, आप एक consumer भी हैं, आप वही नारियल तेल यूज कर रही हैं, आप वही खाना खा रही हैं, आप वही चिप्स की पैकेट खरीद रही हैं, राइट? एक कंज्यूमर के साइड से, राइट, हाउ आप कैसे डिफरेंशिएट करती हैं कि इन्होंने तो हमारी कहानी बताई नहीं, एंड वो फिर वो कंज्यूमर वाला एक्सपीरियंस आपके लिए कैसे होता है?
जैसा मेरे लिए है कि मैं अगर उस प्रोडक्ट को देखती हूँ, जब कि मैं अगर जैसा पहला कदम तो ये है कि अगर उस कोई ऐड आ रहा है उस प्रोडक्ट का, उसमें अगर ट्रांस दिखेगी तो पहले सबसे पहले जो मुख्य धारा जो मेन स्ट्रीम के लोग हैं उनका जो वो उनको समस्या पहले आएगी कि ये क्यों दिख रहा है आज उधर, हमने तो नहीं हमने तो हीरो या हीरोइन ही चाहिए, है ना, ये नहीं चलेगा। लेकिन अगर मैं उस प्रोडक्ट को वो अपने समाज के लिए दिखा रही हूँ, मेरा समाज देख रहा है, तो मेरा समाज उस सोचेगा कि आज ये भी है तो हम भी कल जाएंगे और हम भी उसको खरीदेंगे क्योंकि ये हमारा कम्युनिटी को रिप्रेजेंट कर रही है। तो वो जो कम्युनिटी का एकता है, संगठन है, वो बहुत ज़रूरी है मेरे लिए और वही आगे ले जाती है।
और आपको क्या लगता है, ब्रांड्स को कभी कभी ये भी हो जाता है कि उत्साहन से ज़्यादा कुछ कर बैठे, कुछ गलत कदम या गलत प्रोजेक्शन या पोर्ट्रेल हो जाए, राइट? कैसे वो रोक सकते हैं? ब्रांड्स कहाँ पर फुल स्टॉप दे सकते हैं कि इतनी औकात है ब्रांड में इतना ही कहानी बोलने का कि हाँ रुक जाओ, और व्हाट कैन ब्रांड्स डू बेटर?
मेरे हिसाब से जब हम कुछ ऐड किसी पे हम काम करते तो हमें उस चीज़ पे रिसर्च करना चाहिए, और रिसर्च का मतलब सिर्फ हम एक चीज़ पे नहीं, वो हम जिस कम्युनिटी पे काम कर रहे हैं उस कम्युनिटी के उस ऑन ग्राउंड जाके उस चीज़ को देखना पड़ेगा कि क्या वो सच में है या वाकई है। हम यहाँ सिर्फ अपने हम एडवर्टाइज को बनाने के लिए, फेमस करने के लिए कुछ दिखावा तो नहीं करना चाह रहे हैं, वो चीज़ रुकना ज़रूरी है। और उन चीज़ों से भी जहाँ एक अगर मैं बोल रही हूँ कि ये 5 रुपये वाला चीज़ है और कोई दूसरा ट्रांस बोल रहा है वो 10 रुपये वाला है, तो उस पर भी उनको वो कंपेयराइज करना ज़रूरी है। अगर वो नहीं करेंगे तो शायद ये सब नहीं रुक सकता और वो बढ़ेगा और ज़्यादा।
Saad, a similar question to you, right? How can brands avoid overdoing the commitment, right? You can easily get carried away and you can create what we say a pity party, right? But you don't want to do that, right? How do brands stop themselves from also overdoing it? And what would be your advice to brands hence?
So I would always advise brands to see the community, see the authenticity, like Karnika mentioned, that check, research about the community. And whatever you are doing, do in an authentic way. That will
Yeah.
obviously impact a lot. It is not, and always when you, when it has come to like deaf community, always consider always the deaf community. Just don't depend the knowledge which is around there about the deaf community or persons with disabilities.
Got it. Interesting. And
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so the even that impacts a lot in a positive way.
Thanking and hidden, right? Was that some
No, no, no.
awesome? Um, the idea of, again, coming back to the same thing that we're discussing, the idea of pink washing and virtue signaling, that is there, right? And that also prevents brands from making long-term commitments, right? It is a spur of the moment. There's a Me Too movement happening, so let's talk about women. Tomorrow there's a Black Lives Matter happening globally, so let's talk about them. And right, the commitments become shorter and short-lived and very moment in time, because all of us are about moment marketing now. How do you make long-term commitments as brands? And hence, and I will then ask Saad and Karnika the same question, how do you make long-term commitments about these brands, and what are the advice that you would give to brands from a creative community perspective, right, to make these long-term? Because it's always easy to make one ad, win a few awards, and exit the space. But and we were seeing all those numbers, if you make long-term commitments, there are genuine these things. But where is that creative portrayal based commitment that you would make from a long-term this thing, and what would be your advice?
Okay, so there are actually a bunch of questions in there, so I'm going to try and answer them quickly. Okay, so because I know everyone's super hungry. But so I think first up is, I think there was a very interesting quote that I read the other day, which went something like this. The brand is not the message. It's just an Uber driver that actually delivers the message, right? And I love that quote because it actually tells me that the brand needs to, if you're here to do something good, you need to step out of the way and actually do that good and not make it about yourself. Yeah. That's the first thing, right? And the next I would probably break up into action, intention, and brand. Yeah. Action being, I think we've all spoken about it today, genuine action. There needs to be someone to actually sit up over here and say, hey, this is not just something that we're going to do for June or for a week or for a day. This is something that is going to be consistent across. It's a, you use the word commitment, right? A commitment is never short term, yeah. Right? It's a lifetime commitment. It's a long term commitment, right? Intention, of course, which is what I spoke about earlier. You need to start with the right intention. Are you genuinely here to do good, or are you just meeting some corporate goals, right?
Yeah.
And finally, brand, and I think that probably hasn't been spoken about enough today, is the fact that ask yourself, does your brand really match the kind of cause that you're tacking on with? I mean, you can't just do it just because it's the shiny toy today, right? Yeah. It has to be genuine.
And like, does it a lot?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's these are the things that I would probably.
Got it. And my final question to Saad, as I go down the panel here, Saad, it takes bravery to tackle DEI, and specifically for brands that have never done anything to impact or contribute or make better when they're tackling a minority spectrum, right? What is that bravery that brands need to bring to the table to just simply be able to make that shift or make that change in the way they portray? And the idea of bravery being really put out for brands, because it takes guts. It takes a lot of guts to say, "Nee, I will convince my board or my ex-com to say today, punt on possibly the LGBTQ community." And that's difficult to make because you've always shown a certain binary gender portrayal. What is the idea of, or what is the definition of bravery that you would put there?
Yes, definitely. There is a lot of bravery needed, like you said, to start with. First of all, they will have to just put aside the numbers which where they are working. They will have to like start from the they will have to start from the ground level to understand for the cause which they are doing. They will have to like take measures. They will also have to consider the impact that will have, that may not, the impact may not be the similar ads which they do in monetary wise or so. So yes.
Yeah, amazing. Karnika, आपके लिए जो सिमिलर सवाल, राइट? साहस की जब बात आती है ऐसे कुछ कहानियां बोलने में, काफी दम लगता है कि आज मैं एज अ ब्रांड कुछ नया बोलने वाला हूँ, राइट? वो साहस इजी नहीं होता, और जब पैसे की बात आती तो कभी होता ही नहीं है, राइट? आप ब्रांड्स को क्या एडवाइस देना चाहेंगे इस साहस को सामने लाने के लिए अपने कम्युनिकेशन में?
जो अभी हमारा युग चल रहा है, जो हमारी जनरेशन है, वो जनरेशन बहुत हमारे हम में जिस जनरेशन से मेरी बाद वाली जनरेशन वो नहीं समझ सकती, तो वो उस ब्रांड वाले को ज़्यादा सपोर्ट करेगी जो वो कुछ बनाएगा। और मुझे लगता है LGBTQI+ कम्युनिटी की जो सॉरी, अब जो लोगों के सोच है उसको बदलने के लिए ब्रांड को ही आगे आना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि हम आगे आएंगे तो बोलेंगे तुम तो हो, तुम लोग ही तो हो, तुम हमें क्यों बदलना चाह रहे हो, तुम लोग हो। लेकिन अगर कोई ब्रांड और कोई बड़ा इंसान आके उस चीज़ को वो करता है, सपोर्ट करता है, तो बोलेंगे कि हाँ भाई ये सही बोल रहा होगा।
या
तो वो बहुत ज़रूरी है कि ब्रांड को आगे आना चाहिए। और साहस की बात ये है कि आज से पहले औरत जो थी सॉरी, औरत जो है 50 साल पहले कुछ नहीं थी, कुछ काम नहीं, वो एक बंद कमरे में थी। आज एक औरत हर जगह हर क्षेत्र में है। तो मुझे लगता है कि हमारी जो कम्युनिटी है वो भी अभी रेवोल्यूशन की तरफ है। आज हम भी उसी तरह चल रहे हैं जिस तरह औरत चल के आज अपना मुकदम में पाई है। वैसे ही ब्रांड अगर हमारे साथ चलेंगे, क्योंकि ब्रांड ही हमको दिखा सकता है कि हम क्या कर सकते हैं। हम खुद से करना चाह रहे हैं, हम अपने राइट्स के लिए लड़ रहे हैं, लेकिन वो राइट्स उस तब नहीं मिलेगा जब हम साथ नहीं होंगे।
गॉट इट।
तो वो बहुत ज़रूरी है ब्रांड को आगे।
Thank you. And finally, don't worry, I haven't forgotten my boss at the end of the panel. The final question for her. Ruchira, personally, I've known you to be, and you're passionate about breaking unstereotyping, and not breaking unstereotyping, unstereotyping across, right? In your previous job, you've done that. In your present role, I know how much you champion and even scold us when we do it wrong. I've been on the receiving end of that, right? And as a leader of the organization that's trying to do all that work that all of us just proudly presented, right? I have two questions for you. One, the responsibility that this vests as a leader, right? Not just in your personal life, but in the industry that we are standing for and as part of the industry in this room. And in a few words, and a few final words, right? If you would like to leave, that you would like to leave for everyone in this room as a leader and someone who's so passionate about this.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to commend your bravery in trying to speak Hindi today. I'm sure most of you all noticed, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that's not his strong suit, but well done, Oni, well done. You asked two questions. One is the responsibility. I think the fact is marketers today in the room will realize, will all empathize actually, with the point that we are being seen as revenue drivers, growth drivers for the business, right? So that responsibility sits very heavily with us. And therefore, when you look at championing a more progressive view of the world, remember there will always be naysayers. So taking people along, that change management. I heard something in the first forum today about how they don't want to put money behind it. I don't think that's the case. I think we need to present our case better on. And I saw some Kantar data, which was revolutionary, right? And it's been there now, second round of data. So one, as people who are responsible for growth in the business, you need to be able to do the right thing on brands as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion, but do it in an extremely responsible way. There's no stepping away from that. There's no shortcut and no solution of going out to shock and all. That's not going to happen. The second one is partners. We have to find our ecosystem of partners that we can work with. Really proud of Hayden, the DDB group here. I can see, I don't know where, yeah, there I can see Aditya and I can see Rahul. And so I'm saying, I'm really proud of that we have these kind of partners who are able to come up to us. We didn't prompt DDB for that script on McDowell's. We didn't ask for a script like that. The script came to us and we said, wow, this is brilliant. Likewise, Hayden, the work you've done in Ravani, Black and White, etc. in the past, right? Down to the cards for sharing, which is a separate piece we can talk about. But so I think having the right partners. Therefore, three things I'll leave because I know we're ending this panel. I think I'll go back to saying this creative that we've seen, all the case studies, progressive portrayal and progressive media, get the representation, get the storytelling, get the agency, and then after that, put your money on it. Because if you don't put your money on it, it's not going to work. Don't make it stuff for awards. That gives everyone a bad name. The second thing I'd say is that you heard it from them. It has to be authentic and it has to be done for the right purpose. You can't do it, like I said, for the awards. And the third one is I really believe that it gives all of us, I know you feel like that, all of us at work, a fantastic sense of pride in the brands and in the organization that we work for. So as Diageo, the one score that on our organization health surveys comes always, top of the box, literally 99% is, or 100, proud of the brands that I sell and proud of the work that I do, right? So I think it does three things and it's fantastic. We all get into work in the morning despite all the other stress and all the scolding I believe I do on you. Thank you.
Thank you so, so very much. I'd like to extend a big, big thank you to Karnika, Saad, and Hayden for joining us, and for Ruchira for leading the entire effort for all of us. Thank you so much for being a Patience audience. This has been an absolute pride and joy and honor.